disruptors. Please welcome to the stage Pramod Jain.
Good afternoon, everyone. There are lots of eyes and ears on energy industry these days. At any conference that you go to, especially energy conferences, you will hear voices of hope. You'll hear voices of alarm. Today, my talk for the next 12, 13 minutes would be about hope. And that hope is via technology. Because I'm going to talk about a tool that profoundly makes an impact on the net zero goals, especially in the area of carbon capture and storage. But before I do that, let me tell a story from my daughter's 5th birthday party. Now she's 10 years old. It's 5 years ago, roughly. Out of all the games that she wanted to play at that party, she decided to play the game of pin the tail on the donkey. Well, she wanted unicorn, but you can get the idea. It's the same. And the game is simple. I'm sure a lot of you have grown up playing that game. It's a simple concept, but in reality, it's hard. It's hard because each kid is wearing a blindfold, and then they are marching towards a destination to get as close as possible or hit the mark in terms of putting the tail on the donkey. Now, as I watched that game continue, saw so many kids coming close to it, but a lot of kids were way off of the mark. When my daughter's turn came in, she went close to it, and she was able to hit the mark perfectly. How? A lot of kids got upset. Her friends were upset about it. I wasn't, because she took the blindfold off. She de-risked the situation. And why am I talking about blindfold? I'm talking about blindfold because imagine showing up for a job every day wearing a blindfold on. Radical thought? Implausible in a lot of different ways. But the engineers in energy industry, especially engineers that work in subsurface, do that day in, day out. They've been asked to come up with methods, standards, procedures to extract oil and gas from the ground, or to put carbon dioxide back into the ground. And how do they do that? They do that via simulation technology. CMG, Computer Modeling Group, that's what I work at. It's a company 45 years old now, originated out of University of Calgary as a research foundation, played a significant role in extracting oil and gas from Canadian oil sands using thermal technology, arguably the first commercial simulator in the world. Since then, 45 years later, has made a significant impact in the energy industry by having 450 clients all around the world. In the energy side, extracting oil and gas, looking at energy efficiency and optimization from extracting more from less. But specifically about CCS, carbon capture storage. Again, not a new concept. We understand carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has been used over decades to do enhanced oil recovery, extract more oil and gas from the ground. Now, as we start to look at decarbonization, CCS becomes that lever to capture the carbon dioxide, transport this to a storage site through pipes, through ships, through rails, and then finding the right storage site where you can ingest the carbon dioxide and you ensure that carbon dioxide never leaks. Because what happens if the carbon dioxide does leak? You take 5 steps backwards. You can have huge regulatory fines, you can get shut down, you can get sued. There you go, I'm going on the alarm bell, but believe me, I'm talking about hope through technology here. So there's a lot of complexity because carbon dioxide is volatile. And what you see image over here is one of the examples of CNG simulation that is run to ensure that you figure out where carbon dioxide is, where it's going to stay over the period of time. Now, as I mentioned, that CO2 has been used over decades now for enhanced oil recovery, but it was a novel concept in late 90s. And that's where our Japanese clients, Japan Oil Engineering, they came to us in 1997, right after the Kyoto Act was passed. And they came to us asking to say, hey, we need to look at carbon dioxide in terms of storage. And can simulation play a key role in terms of doing that? At that time, think about 1997, where we did not have access to high-performance computing. There was not much physics there. There was not know-how, no history around it. But together, Japan Oil Engineering and CMG came together to build the first state-of-the-art simulation engine called GEM, which is solving equation of state. And that was the start of the collaboration. And since then, now, if you look at fast-forwarding 20 years now, 80% of the world's projects are now run by CMG simulation software around CCS. So why is it complex? It's complex because CO2 is volatile, and as I mentioned before, the risk is around leakage. Since we cannot see what's happening inside the ground, you have to make a number of assumptions. And if those assumptions go south, or if you start to look at hit and trial or subpar technologies, you're ending up looking at various implications in a negative way. This slide kind of talks about the fines that the operators have given right after the Clean Air Act was passed, around $54 billion in the last 22 years. So that's a lot of money that we are talking about in this area. And again, as I mentioned, it is really about risk mitigation. CO2 that was used for enhanced oil recovery was more about revenue play because that's helping to extract more oil and gas from the ground. The recovery factor in oil and gas is typically between 15%, 20%, sometimes 35%. But the more you extract, the more money you can make because you're producing more oil. In this case, it's the reverse of that. You really are ensuring that there is no leakage. And that is all about risk mitigation aspect of it. So these two images kind of gives you a picture about simulation software and how simulation software kind of plays a key role in getting to understand where CO2 is. The left side of the image kind of shows the CO2 plume, how far it has progressed. And you have to rerun it as well. It's not like CO2 is static in the ground and it's not going to move around it. You have to rerun the software to ensure that you're constantly tracking it, constantly monitoring it. On the right-hand side, the image that you see, that's a long-term forecast. So before an operator gets to start doing the build-out of the facility, and it takes 3 years, 5 years to get the facility to be operational, you have to apply for a permit. These permits need to have that full-fledged plan. You're not talking about CO2 ingestion for 1 year, 5 years. You're talking about 100 years. So your plan needs to have that long-term horizon. And then you have to constantly ensure that you're rerunning the software on a regular basis because, again, you want to make sure that you're keeping a track of it as CO2 moves along the journey over the period of time. So this is a snapshot coming out from the simulation software. But why is it so complex? Now, again, I'm not going to test all of your differential equations here today, but there's a lot of complexity that goes behind the scene. The physics that you see over here, so conservation of mass. If you're adding a mass inside, you need to balance it out. Left-hand side needs to be equal to right-hand side. That's an equation of state that you're solving. Energy can't be created nor destroyed, can be transferred from one form to another. Law of physics, that's in there. And these are snapshots of equations that are codified inside our simulators. From there, using the advantage of high-performance computing, you're able to run 10,000, 100,000s of runs on top of it. So my scientists and engineers who are PhDs in physics, petroleum engineering, and math, that's what they do. Because solving one equation itself sometimes can take multiple years. Is as complex around it. Because if you are not able to get the geochemistry right, you're talking about challenges of ingestion. You can overflow the ingestion rate, and you can have volume issues. You are looking at the wrong storage site, you can reactivate some of the faults where the leakage will start to come in. So all of that is part of these differential equations behind the scene. AI, I'm sure you have learned a lot about AI in this conference as well. The thing about AI, there's a lot of historical data, there's a lot of pattern matching. The challenge with subsurface is that this is unique. The geology is very unique from one to another. You just can't extrapolate the data and then you expect the same results coming out. So you really need to have a blend of these physics and then the AI to give you that speed so you can get to a quick answer and you can run those hundreds and hundreds of simulation runs to ensure that you're making the right decision when you're injecting carbon dioxide inside the ground. So I talked about carbon capture storage. Now there's a lot of focus on carbon capture itself, the direct air technology, and there's a lot happening in terms of how do you transport the carbon dioxide. But as we talk about energy transition, there are multiple technologies that are in play as well. Geothermal. So geothermal, the myth that you have to find a hot area where you can extract the energy out, Earth is getting hotter, right? You can actually leverage carbon dioxide to heat up the reservoir and then power the geothermal. A lot of focus on hydrogen, green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. Now the thing about hydrogen, again from hydrocarbons aspect, you can liquefy hydrogen, you can store it. High pressure, you can have that storage as well. But these are expensive. Like, how do you find a way to scale these technologies on a commercial grade level? And that is the challenge. But again, you can go subsurface, and you can store hydrogen inside the ground. But what you need to start worrying about is that the reaction of hydrogen in terms of microbes, reaction of hydrogen in terms of other fluids and other gases around, that starts to create complexity. But I do remain confident that as these technologies get mainstream, we will find new ways to move forward. Energy transition is actually energy addition, right? Because we all are now realizing that we need energy. AI needs energy. We need clean sources of energy. Energy mix is changing, so as we start to do that mix change, we need to find new technologies, and those technologies need to then be thought through from a simulation perspective. The last point I would say is around collaboration. Now, the theme of the conference has been around collaboration. Why do we see more projects on CCS in US? Because there are a lot of incentives. IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, gives a lot of subsidies and help for these operators to start looking at CCS because it's still today a cost center. It's not a revenue generation play unless you start doing CCUS. Canada is somewhere in the middle. So you need to start working with regulators because they need to have access to the software to start understanding to say, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty around it, but software is there, the technology is there, which is powered by physics to ensure that when the permit is issued, it is thought through from a long-term horizon perspective, and you're de-risking as much as possible. The other aspect I will say is collaboration with customers, because you're not just building for yourself. As a technology provider, it's our job to work with the customers to ensure that we are taking their input into account, and as we take this technologies there, they're using it on a regular basis. I see a lot of young professionals over here, a lot of volunteers who are thinking about entering into energy space or not. I still say that we are solving an energy trilemma problem. We're talking about energy security. 26% of the world still uses coal. So there's an energy poverty out there. As we start to move towards clean sources of energy, you're looking for a purpose. Energy industry is the place to be because you can make a difference in energy security. If you're looking for a purpose when it comes down to energy sustainability, this is the place to be because you can play a big role on energy transition. And if you're just so excited about solving a very complex problem, I just gave you a glimpse of the amount of equations that are behind the scene to solve this problem where you cannot see what's happening inside the Earth. This is a place to be. So my calling out at this stage is trust the technology. The technology is not just pure black box AI. There's a lot of hard work happening behind the scene. This industry has solved a lot of complex problems over the years, and the engineers and the scientists are constantly looking at new ways to ensure that we are delivering those technologies out that are proven and tested. AI can be mistrusted, but physics cannot be. Physics doesn't lie. Math doesn't lie. We have access to high-performance computing, and we can really start to make a difference. Progress over perfection. We need to start celebrating that because oftentimes we are guilty of admiring the problem. The time right now is to act now. CCS is a technology that's available today. There's no rhyme or reason why we can't move forward and make that as an important lever as we move forward. Thanks very much.